The planet of Viridia floated like a green jewel in the black ocean of space. Its cities shined with silver towers, its rivers glowed under two suns, and its people walked with calm faces. Viridians were proud because their world was built on one unbroken rule: they never lied for thousands of years. No Viridian had ever spoken false words. They believed speech was sacred to them. Words were not just sounds but living promises. When a Viridian said, "I will," it meant the future was already decided. When they said, "I love," it meant their hearts could never betray. In such a world, trust was stronger than stone. And betrayal was a story they only read in books. Their history was peaceful. Their courts never needed trials. Their markets never needed contracts. No one cheated. No one betrayed. A seller would place fruit on a table, say the price, and the buyer would give it. If someone promised to meet at sunrise, they would be there even if storms came. The entire society was built on truth, and because of this, Viridia had no wars for centuries. But all of this began to tremble the day a human ship landed on their soil. The vessel came like a falling star, shining fire across the night sky. When it opened, a man walked out with cautious steps. His name was Daniel, an explorer from Earth. He carried no weapons, only a translator device and a curious mind. The Viridians welcomed him. Their leader, High Chancellor Cerise, spoke with clear eyes. "Welcome, human. We have heard of your kind. You live far away. But your hearts seek knowledge. We honor that." Daniel bowed politely, but inside, he felt a nervous twist. He had studied the Viridians before coming. He knew one dangerous truth about them. They had no concept of lies. At first, Daniel thought it was only myth, but soon he saw it with his own eyes. He asked a child if she had ever broken a rule. She nodded honestly, saying, "Yes. I once took food before mealtime, and my mother scolded me." The child looked guilty but never thought of hiding her mistake. Daniel asked a merchant if he ever overcharged. The merchant frowned. "Why would I? The price is the price." To say otherwise would be impossible. Daniel felt both amazed and uneasy. He knew humans used lies for many things. Sometimes for survival, sometimes for kindness, sometimes for greed. But on Viridia, such things simply did not exist. He wondered how a society so pure could survive in a galaxy filled with trickery and war. As days passed, Daniel joined their councils. He noticed how they spoke with perfect certainty. When they planned, no one doubted. When they promised, no one feared. He admired them. But part of him also felt powerful. For the first time, he realized he held a skill that they could never match. One evening, as he dined with Cerise and other leaders, the Chancellor asked a question that froze Daniel. "Human, tell us, is it true that your people sometimes say words that are not real?" The room grew silent. Every Viridian leaned forward, eyes wide like children hearing a forbidden tale. Daniel took a deep breath. He had prepared for this moment. He had to answer carefully. "Yes," he said slowly. "Humans sometimes say things that are not true." Gasps filled the hall. Viridians looked at each other. Some covered their mouths in shock. Others whispered in disbelief. For them, it was like hearing that humans could fly or breathe fire. It sounded unnatural, dangerous, even magical. "Why would you do such a thing?" Cerise asked. His voice held both curiosity and fear. Daniel thought for a moment. How could he explain? He chose simple words. Sometimes humans lie to protect others. Sometimes they lie to win. Sometimes they lie to escape. It can be used for kindness. And it can be used for harm. The Viridians listened with trembling hearts. To them, this was a new universe opening before their eyes. A universe where words could bend like shadows. For the first time in their long history, they felt the ground of certainty shake beneath their feet. That night, Daniel looked at the alien stars above Viridia. He wondered if he had made a mistake by telling them the truth about lying. He had planted a seed in their minds, a seed that could grow into wonder, fear, or even destruction. He closed his eyes and whispered to himself, "This world has never known lies, but now they know about me." And somewhere deep inside Viridia, in quiet homes and busy streets, Viridians whispered to each other for the first time with doubt. They asked, if words can be false, how can we ever be sure again? The world of truth had taken its first step toward the world of deception. And Daniel, one human among millions, had become the center of their storm. The days after Daniel's confession were heavy with silence. Viridians looked at him with eyes full of wonder and fear. Some avoided him in the streets, as if lies could spread like a sickness. Others followed him secretly, whispering about the human who could bend truth itself. Daniel felt their stares wherever he went. He had become a living mystery. Chancellor Ceres invited him to stay in the Great Hall of Clarity. It was a palace built of glass and stone, where every word spoken echoed with honor. At meals, Viridians asked him endless questions. Is it hard to live in a world where lies exist? Do children on earth lie as soon as they can speak? How do leaders rule if truth is not certain? Daniel answered with patience, but he knew every word carried danger. He was showing them a path their world had never walked before. One morning, Daniel woke early and went to the garden of the hall. A young Viridian child sat alone near the crystal fountains. She looked upset. Daniel sat beside her and asked gently, "What is wrong?" The child whispered, "I was supposed to bring water for my teacher, but I forgot. She will be angry." Her bright blue eyes filled with tears. Daniel smiled kindly. Without thinking, he said, "Then just tell her you tried, but the jar broke." The words slipped from his mouth like any normal human comfort. But for the child, it was like thunder in the sky. She blinked in shock. "But that is not true." Daniel nodded slowly. "Yes, it is not true, but it will protect you." The girl gasped. Her small hands trembled. "Protect me? From punishment?" Daniel explained softly, "Sometimes a lie can shield someone. Sometimes it can save a heart from breaking." The child's tears stopped, but confusion filled her face. She repeated his words in a whisper. "A lie can save?" And in that moment, a seed was planted. One innocent child now carried the idea that truth was not the only shield. Daniel realized what he had done. He looked around nervously, hoping no one else had heard, but a guard at the edge of the garden had seen everything, his eyes wide, his breath fast. He rushed to the council chambers. Within hours, the story spread like fire. The human used his power. He taught a child to speak false words. Some called it a crime, others called it a miracle. The council gathered again. Ceres looked at Daniel with heavy eyes. "Is it true? Did you tell the child to say what was not real?" Daniel stood firm. "Yes, but it was to spare her from pain. It was not to harm." The hall erupted with voices. Some shouted he must leave Viridia. Others said he should teach them. For the first time in centuries, the council itself was divided. One elder rose, his voice shaking. "If humans can use lies to protect, can they not also use lies to destroy? What if he teaches us, and our world breaks apart?" Another elder argued, "But what if lies are a gift? A new tool we never knew we needed?" The debate raged. Daniel watched in silence. He could see the fear in their eyes, but also the hunger for knowledge. Viridians had lived in certainty for so long that the idea of choice thrilled them. That night, Daniel sat alone in his chamber. The translator device hummed softly. He thought of Earth, of the countless times humans lied for love, for survival, for victory. He thought of wars started by lies, but also of lives saved by gentle falsehoods. Here on Viridia, one simple lie had become the most powerful act in history. And deep within the alien city, the little girl repeated the words to her friends. "A lie can save you." Soon children whispered it in the streets. Adults overheard and wondered. Doubt began to spread. Questions rose like storm clouds. Viridia was changing, and it all began with one small lie from one human mouth. Daniel felt both guilty and proud. He knew this was only the beginning. The world of truth had seen its first crack, and soon the cracks would spread. The city of Viridia Prime had never known such noise. For centuries, its plazas were filled with music and open speech, but never with fear. Now, whispers moved through the streets like wind through broken glass. Children repeated the strange, new idea, a lie can save. Merchants frowned as they overheard. Teachers trembled when their students asked, what if truth is not always the answer? For the first time in living memory, doubt was alive. Daniel could feel it everywhere. When he walked through the markets, Viridians stared at him. Some bowed with respect, as if he was a bringer of hidden wisdom. Others turned away, muttering that his presence was poison. He realized that his single act with the child had started a fire he could no longer control. Inside the Hall of Clarity, the High Council argued day and night. Some members demanded that Daniel be expelled from Viridia before more harm was done. Others insisted he must stay, for his knowledge could give them power in a dangerous galaxy. One young counselor named Lyra spoke with passion. If the humans use lies in war, then we must learn too. If we do not, we will always be weaker. Her words echoed loudly. Many nodded. Many others shook their heads in fear. Daniel tried to explain himself. Lies are not only weapons, they can be used for kindness, to protect the weak, to comfort the broken. But his words only deepened the divide. The Viridians had never faced a tool that could serve both good and evil at the same time. For them, truth had always been the only path. Now, the human had opened another road, and it was dark and uncertain. Rumors began to spread faster than light. Some said Daniel could speak lies so powerful that they could bend reality. Others claimed he could make the stars themselves vanish with a single false word. Entire villages began sending messages to the council. Some begged for Daniel to teach them. Others demanded that he be cast into the void. Late one evening, a small group of Viridian scholars approached Daniel in secret. They bowed low, their voices nervous. Teach us, they whispered. Show us how to use this power. Daniel hesitated. He knew the danger. He remembered Earth's history. Kings and generals twisting lies to gain power. Yet he also saw the hunger in their eyes, the desire to understand what had once been impossible. Against his better judgment, he spoke softly. A lie begins with choice. You choose words that do not match reality, and you speak them with confidence. The listener believes because they cannot imagine words without truth. The scholars listened in awe to them. It was like learning a forbidden spell. They practiced, stumbling with awkward attempts. Their faces flushed when they said something false. One whispered, I am standing, though he was sitting. The others gasped. The sound of falsehood made their hearts pound. It was thrilling, terrifying, and addictive. But not everyone saw it as a gift. Outside the palace walls, protests began. Viridians gathered, holding banners of light that read, Protect the truth. They shouted that the human was corrupting their children, that their world would collapse if lies spread. Their voices rose high into the night, shaking the towers. Chancellor Cerise felt the weight of a broken world on his shoulders. He called Daniel to the council once again. Human, he said, his voice heavy. You have changed us. Some believe you are a teacher. Others believe you are a destroyer. But we cannot deny this truth. Our people no longer live in certainty. Daniel lowered his head. He had never wanted to break their society. Yet he knew something deeper now. Lies could not be unlearned. Once the idea had entered their minds, it would grow like roots through stone. That night, the city of Viridia Prime was restless, in the homes of the poor and the halls of the powerful. One question echoed again and again. If words can be false, how can we ever trust again? The world that had once been built on unshakable truth was beginning to fracture. And Daniel, the lone human, stood at the center of the storm. The Hall of Clarity had never been so full. Viridians crowded the shining chamber, their voices sharp. With fear and curiosity, the High Council sat in a circle of crystal seats, their faces tense. At the center stood Daniel, the human who had brought both wonder and chaos to their world. Chancellor Cerise raised his hand, and silence fell like a heavy curtain. His voice echoed, Today we face a question greater than any before. Can we allow this human, who can twist words, to remain among us? Or must we send him away before our people lose themselves? The chamber trembled with whispers. Some shouted, "Send him away," while others cried, "Let him teach." Daniel stood calm, but inside his heart raced. He knew every word he spoke would decide his future. Worse, it might decide the future of Viridia itself. He chose his words with care. "I do not wish to harm you," he said. "I came to learn, to share, and to live in peace." His voice was steady. But he knew truth alone would not be enough. He had to guide them and perhaps deceive them. A counselor named Viren rose, his eyes burning. "You have already harmed us, human. Our children repeat your falsehoods. Our markets are filled with doubt. Trust is breaking. And now you stand here pretending you are innocent." His words struck the chamber like thunder. Many nodded, their fear spilling into anger. Daniel felt the heat of their eyes. He took a slow breath, and for the first time in front of the council, he chose deception. "You fear that I can control you with lies," he said softly. "But the truth is, I cannot. Lies only work if the listener chooses to believe. If you remain strong in your truth, my lies are powerless." The words were half-truth, a clever twist. The Viridians leaned closer, their brows furrowed. Another counselor, Lyra, spoke sharply. "Then why did the child believe you when you told her the jar broke?" Daniel paused, then smiled faintly. "Because she wanted to believe. She wished to escape punishment. A lie is nothing without desire. It is not I who control you. It is your own hearts." His words spread like a shadow across the chamber. Some gasped in fear, others looked thoughtful. For the first time, they began to see that deception was not only a human power, but also a reflection of their own weakness. The council argued for hours. Some demanded punishment, others begged to learn more. Daniel watched as voices clashed, and he realized something chilling. The Viridians, who had lived in unity for ages, were now divided beyond repair. At last, Cerise raised his hand again. "Enough," he declared. "We cannot decide tonight, but we cannot deny that this human has revealed a new truth. A dangerous truth. If lies exist, then trust alone is not enough to guide us." His words fell heavy on the chamber, and the silence that followed was darker than any storm. After the session, Daniel walked through the long glass halls. His steps echoed. He felt the weight of what he had said. The half-truth he had spoken had bought him time, but it had also spread deeper doubt. He had told them that lies had no power without belief. Yet he knew this was only partly true. Lies could bend armies, topple kingdoms, and even break entire worlds. Outside the hall, protests grew louder. Some carried banners of light reading, "Silence the human," others shouted, "Teach us his ways." Daniel stood at the balcony, watching the divided city. He felt both guilty and powerful. For the first time he understood why humans often use deception as a tool. It was not only about control. It was about survival. That night, Lyra approached him in secret, her voice low, her eyes bright. "You are clever, human," she said. "You used truth and falsehood together. You made the council hesitate. I want to learn this skill. I want to know how to use lies to protect my people." Daniel looked at her, torn between caution and curiosity. He knew that teaching her would spread the fire even further. But he also knew the Viridians would never stop searching for the power he carried. As he stared at the glowing towers of Viridia Prime, he whispered to himself, "The council will never be the same. Their world will never be the same." And it all began with one human voice. The seeds of deception had now entered the highest chambers of power, and soon they would grow into something far greater. The council chamber was silent for days after Daniel's speech. But the silence was not peace. It was the silence of a world holding its breath, waiting to see what would come next. Outside, the streets of Viridia Prime were restless. Some shouted for the human to be sent away. Others whispered that he must stay and share his secrets. The air itself seemed heavy with suspicion. Daniel stayed in his chamber, watched by guards who no longer trusted him. Yet even under watch, visitors came in secret. A group of young scholars, bold and trembling, entered one evening. Their faces glowed with curiosity. "Teach us," they begged. "Show us how to shape words like you do. Let us understand this power." Daniel hesitated. He knew teaching them would bring danger, but he also knew curiosity could not be killed. If he refused, they would find their own way. Perhaps it was better to guide them carefully, so he agreed, and that night the first secret lesson began. He started simple. He asked one scholar to stand and say, "I am flying." Though his feet were on the ground, the words came out shaking. The others gasped, hearts pounding. The scholar looked pale, as if he had touched something forbidden. Daniel smiled gently. "That is a lie. It is only words. But your heart resisted it because you have never broken truth before." He taught them again. "Say, 'I am hungry,' when you are not. Say, 'I am afraid,' when you are calm." Slowly, they tried, their voices quivering. Each time the lie left their lips, their faces burned. Their bodies shook as if they had sinned against the universe itself. But with every attempt, it grew easier soon. They began to laugh nervously, amazed that reality itself had not collapsed. Daniel warned them, "A lie is powerful but dangerous. It can protect or destroy. Use it with care, or it will consume you." But even as he spoke, he saw the excitement in their eyes. For them, it was not only dangerous, it was thrilling. Word of these secret lessons spread faster than Daniel expected. More scholars came, then merchants, then even guards in secret armor. Each wanted to learn. Each wanted to taste the forbidden fruit. By the third night, more than 20 Viridians sat before him, eager to practice, but not all were students. Among them was an ambitious counselor named Viren. He had once shouted to expel the human, but now he came quietly, his mind filled with darker thoughts. As he repeated false words under Daniel's guidance, his lips curved into a smile. He was not learning for wisdom, he was learning for power. Meanwhile, outside the Hall of Clarity, suspicion grew. Rumors ran wild. "The human is building an army of liars." Some said, "He is corrupting the young, turning them against truth." Families argued in their homes. Friends doubted each other. Even lovers began to wonder, what if he lies when he says he loves me? The foundation of Viridia shook, all because Daniel had opened a door that could not be closed. One evening, Lyra approached Daniel after a lesson, her eyes bright, her voice strong. "This is more than a skill. This is a weapon. With lies, we can protect ourselves from enemies. We can trick those who would harm us." "You must teach the council too," Daniel frowned. He feared what might happen if leaders learned this art, but he also knew the pressure would never end. That night, as he walked through the city, he heard voices in the dark alleys. 2 merchants argued. One shouted, "Your price is fair," though it was not. The other gasped, realizing he had just heard a deliberate lie. Panic spread. Soldiers were called. The argument ended in confusion. But the seed was there. Lies had escaped the lessons and entered daily life. Back in his chamber, Daniel sat in silence. His hands trembled. He had wanted to share knowledge, but now it was spinning beyond control. He saw 2 paths ahead. Either Viridia would learn to master deception carefully, or it would collapse under its weight. And far away in the council chambers, Viren smiled to himself. He had already thought of a plan. If lies could win hearts, then lies could also win power. He would be the first Viridian ruler to use deception as a weapon. The dangerous experiment had begun, and the world of truth would never return to what it once was. Asterisk, the city of Viridia Prime was no longer the shining jewel it once had been. Streets, once filled with laughter, were now filled with arguments. Neighbors looked at each other with narrowed eyes. Children whispered forbidden words in playgrounds. Families questioned promises once spoken with certainty. The world built on truth was breaking apart, and at the center of it all stood Daniel, the human who had taught them how to doubt. Inside the Hall of Clarity, the council was in chaos. The young counselor Lyra argued passionately that deception could be used as a shield. If enemies attack, we can mislead them. If spies come, we can confuse them. Lying can save us, she declared. But across from her, Veron smiled quietly, his voice smooth, his eyes sharp. Or lying can give us control. We can command our people not only with truth, but with fear, with words shaped to our will. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew he was not thinking of protection. He was thinking of power. Daniel listened with a heavy heart. He could see the divide widening. Lyra's hope for defense, Veron's hunger for control. And all around them, ordinary Viridians began to mirror these leaders. Some believed lies could protect. Others feared lies would enslave. The first cracks of civil war were forming. One evening, Daniel walked through the markets. He heard merchants shouting false prices, customers arguing, guards stepping in. Suspicion hung in the air like smoke. As he passed, he saw a friend he had made, a quiet Viridian farmer, who looked at him with eyes full of anger. "You changed us, human. You made us doubt. Before you came, I trusted my brother, my wife, my neighbors. Now I trust no one." His voice shook with rage. Daniel had no reply. The truth of his words cut deeper than any blade. Back in the council, the storm finally broke. Veron stood before the chamber and accused Cerise, the chancellor, of weakness. His voice thundered. "Cerise hides the truth from us. He fears the human. He fears lies. But I will not fear. I will use them. I will lead us into a new age of strength." Gasps filled the hall. Cerise tried to answer, but Veron was ready. With a calm smile, he spoke a lie so bold it froze the chamber. "The Chancellor has already made a secret pact with the human to control Viridia. He plans to enslave us all with deception." The council erupted. Some shouted in denial. Others believed instantly. They had never faced a lie so large before. They had no defense. For the first time in their history, a leader used falsehood to twist reality. Cerise tried to speak, but doubt had already spread. Veron's words infected minds like a plague. The council turned against their chancellor. Guards who once served him hesitated. Some even stepped back. Daniel watched in horror. He knew the accusation was false. But here, in this hall of glass and stone, truth was no longer unbreakable. By the end of the night, Cerise was removed from power. Veron took his place as acting chancellor. His voice rang out. "From this day forward, Viridia will no longer live blind in chains of truth. We will embrace the weapon of deception. We will shape reality as we choose." The crowd cheered, but not all with joy. Many cheered out of fear. Daniel returned to his chamber, his mind heavy. He had seen lies on earth used to topple kings, but never had he seen it so quickly destroy a world built only on truth. He whispered to himself, "This is my fault. I brought them the fire, and now it burns out of control." In the following days, Veron spread false proclamations. He claimed villages had betrayed the council when they had not. He declared enemies existed where none were found. Armies began to march. Cities prepared for war. And for the first time in centuries, Viridia's skies filled with smoke. Lyra came to Daniel, her eyes full of desperation. "You must help us. He is twisting everything. He uses lies to gain power. If you do nothing, our world will collapse." Daniel closed his eyes. He knew she was right, but he also knew that stopping Veron would require the very weapon that had started all of this. Another lie. The world of Viridia, once pure in truth, had fallen into the hands of deception, and one man's hunger for power had turned words into chains. The great betrayal had begun. The world of Viridia was on fire, not with flames, but with doubt. In every home, in every street, voices clashed. Some supported Veron, believing his lies gave them strength. Others resisted, clinging desperately to the old ways of truth. Families broke apart, friends turned into enemies, and the once united people were now split in two. Daniel watched helplessly as the storm grew. He had taught a simple lie to protect a child, And now entire armies were marching because of falsehoods. Lyra came to him every night, her voice shaking. We cannot fight him with truth alone. He twists words faster than we can defend them. You must use your gift, Daniel. One final lie. One lie strong enough to end this war. Daniel's heart was torn. He remembered Earth, where lies had destroyed nations and families. He had promised himself he would not let that happen here. But he also knew that without action, Varen's lies would consume Viridia completely. He walked through the city and saw children pointing fingers at each other, shouting accusations that were not real. He saw soldiers ready to fight battles based only on rumors. He saw a world drowning in the very poison he had brought. At last, Daniel stood before the council once more. The chamber was dark, filled with tension. Viren sat proudly in the chancellor's seat, his smile sharp as a blade. The human returns. He said, perhaps to admit his crimes, perhaps to confess that he and Cerise plotted together. Murmurs spread. Many believed Viren already. Daniel looked at their faces. He saw fear, anger, and confusion. He knew this was his final chance. He took a deep breath and spoke with steady voice. I will tell you the truth. The chamber leaned forward, every ear strained to hear. Then Daniel did the one thing only a human could do. He lied. Viren is not Viridian. Daniel declared, his voice strong. He is a spy from another world, sent to break you apart. With falsehoods, he uses lies not as a gift, but as a weapon to enslave you. If you continue to follow him, you will no longer be Viridians. You will be slaves of deception. Gasps filled the chamber. Varen's face froze in shock. He shouted, lies, all lies. But now the council hesitated. For the first time they doubted him. The seed Daniel planted grew quickly. If Viren could lie, then perhaps everything he had said was false. Perhaps he truly was a traitor. The more he protested, the more guilty he appeared. Chaos erupted. Some counselors stood against Viren. Guards who once served him stepped back in uncertainty. The chamber split apart, but the tide had shifted. Viren's power cracked under the weight of Daniel's falsehood. By the end of the night, he was dragged away, shouting that he was loyal, but no one believed him anymore. Daniel stood alone in the silence that followed, his chest heavy. He had saved Viridia from Viren, but at a terrible cost, for he knew the truth. Viren had been no spy, no alien agent. He had been only a Viridian hungry for power. Daniel's lie had broken him, but it had also shown every Viridian that lies could shape reality completely. Lyra approached, her eyes filled with both relief and sorrow. You saved us, she whispered. Daniel shook his head. No, I only delayed what will come. The truth is gone. Your people now know the power of lies. They will use them again. With or without me. Outside, the city was restless. Some cheered that Viren had fallen. Others whispered that Daniel's words had been false. Doubt was now permanent. The world of truth was dead. In its place was a new world. One where every word carried weight, suspicion, and danger. Daniel left the Hall of Clarity that night. Walking under the twin suns, he looked at the alien stars and whispered, I gave them my greatest curse, and they will never be the same. And so Viridia stepped into a new age. An age where lies lived beside truth. An age shaped forever by one human who with a single deception had changed their world.